Stories on the African continent, and today the continent is about to experience another significant milestone. This is Kenya will be making history by deploying its first locally made satellite into space. Of course, this has got economic potential for Kenya, enabling Earth observation, food security mapping, monitoring the environment, as well as disaster management, among other things. The not so good news, though, is the cancellation of the Iran nuclear agreement, which is likely to have an impact right here in South Africa and I suppose on the rest of the continent as well. Amid these events, Rwanda hosts its 2018 Transmit Africa Summit. Our African specialist is here in studio with us, Victor Kgomoeswana. He is, of course, the author of Africa is Open for Business. Good to have you. Good to have you here in studio.
Good morning. Good to see you again. Yeah.
Exciting times for Kenya. It really is. Talk to us about what's going on there.
Certainly. It's a locally made satellite.
Yeah.
And we're talking students here of the University of Nairobi. I mean, how many people even know about the University of Nairobi now to have students and researchers collaborating to build a nano-satellite, which, as you have explained, is a very good thing for the observation and understanding the universe better. They are doing it, interestingly, in collaboration with Japan. You know, we have always been looking at China as the major force, and the US and the European Union. Japan 2 years ago hosted a Japan-Africa summit, and for the first time they hosted it in Nairobi, and I was always wondering what was the attraction, particularly to Kenya, although I know it is a great economy, it's the powerhouse of East Africa, but when you see things like this, you understand why. So 12 midday today, that's when it will be launching from Japan, of course, because they don't have a space center, but it's something that the United Nations been overseeing. Japan is showing that it can build its own relations. It's not just China or the US and Europe that can have very strategic relations, but I'm just grateful that an African country has brought students at a university and research together to do something of this nature.
That's really fantastic. Now, the financing, I know you mentioned China. Is China the major financer?
No, Japan.
I beg your pardon, Japan.
I'm saying we often expect that China will dominate.
Exactly, but it's Japan that's made the...
So it's the Japan cooperation. Yes, it's that kind of collaboration that you see. Japan is one of those overlooked economies. Remember, it's still in the top 3 in the world.
Yeah.
So it's not a minor player, and it's got a lot of advancement. So I'm just saying the fact that they're deploying from Tokyo shows you the significance of an economy like Japan still on the African continent. And I like the fact that it's not only either US, Europe, or China, because that's what we've been seeing a lot. You need countries like India playing, Brazil coming in, but as I say, the Japanese connection is very interesting, and it's quite a scoop for Japan to maintain that kind of a critical relationship with a critical economy like Kenya.
So another big step for Kenya when it comes to IT is the fact that Microsoft has launched its first software testing center in Africa there through a partnership with IT firm Technobrain in Kenya. Third outside the US, first in Africa. Kenya stealing the limelight.
The only other countries where they have these labs is China, Poland, and India. So that tells you a lot, again, about the significance of this country. Why would Microsoft see the need to build a testing center in Kenya? Because Kenya, we've been saying this, have managed to deploy the use of ICT. They are way ahead of many African countries. They have made connectivity cheaper and faster, taking advantage, of course, of the submarine cables, East African submarine system, and SEACOM that are passing in the Indian Ocean. But that shows that if you have policy that is progressive and is applied consistently, the world does notice. Because Microsoft, remember, wants to increase its foothold in the developing world. And if Kenya is where it is today, already with mobile money being the innovation, the deployment of ICT, the cost of the connectivity going down much cheaper than we have here in South Africa, I would have been doing the same thing if I had been Microsoft.
Fantastic. I mean, Kenya really trying to sell itself here as the hub, technology hub of Africa. It's not even up there in the top 5 economies within Africa, and yet it's attracting all of this attention.
But what tells you the significance, the most followed president on the African continent, the most followed president on Twitter is Uhuru Kenyatta with 3.7 million followers.
Yeah.
The nearest is, I think, President Kagame and Buhari of Nigeria, but he's more than double their number of followers on Twitter. That tells you something, and the Kenyans tweet like no other nation I know on the continent. But it's not just about tweeting. It's showing that the connectivity is affordable. People appreciate what it can do. Remember, this is a country that gave us M-Pesa, mobile money, which now moves more than a third of that economy through a cell phone. Where we didn't have banking, and in a matter of 5 years, we moved from no banking to the most advanced banking solution in the world. So amazing. I'm just impressed by what Kenya is able to do.
Well, I mean, I have to tell you, just from my personal perspective of when I spent some time in Kenya, I went up to Kakuma, which is a refugee camp right at the top of Kenya.
I remember that cross.
Yeah, there you go. Now, I mean, this is basically in the middle of nowhere, and yet... Let me tell you something, Victor. The internet connectivity there, the amount of data that is being used in these areas, it's flawless. It was absolutely unbelievable. We could do live crossings from this refugee camp into the studio here in South Africa with no problem whatsoever.
Without glitches, without a signal, without Mama taking the signal in the middle of the broadcast.
It is affordable for everybody. Now, it doesn't matter who you are, and you're a refugee living in a camp, and yet you can still access data. Now, we in South Africa are doing something very, very wrong. We really, really are when it comes to data.
Well, we're missing the point.
Yeah.
We are thinking days of photocopy machine and faxes when a cell phone was a luxury.
Yeah.
The world has moved on.
It's a necessity.
Remember, I'm glad you're mentioning this because you're talking about refugee camp, where it's most desperate. When you're in a refugee camp, you don't have time to be saying, I'm waiting for exchange, I'm waiting for the signal to get stronger, I'm waiting for the data to... You exactly are proving the point of where the reason would be for Microsoft to see that country as a logical partner for
Amazing, amazing. Victor, we've stolen all our time. We haven't spoken about the Iran deal, MTN, nothing like that. Thankfully, we did speak about that yesterday, so we'll continue that and invite you back again to talk about those, but I'm glad we focused on this. Thank you for talking to us. As always, Victor Kgomoeswana giving us a wrap of the stories, but actually this time really focusing in on Kenya as a new technological hub here in Africa. We take a break. We've got some dance for you after this. Stay tuned.